and welcome to County Board Wrap-Up, our deep dive into the big issues from this month's County Board meeting. I'm your host, Kara O'Donnell, and we will be joined, as always, by County Board Chair Matt DeFerranti, as well as Board Member Libby Garvey, to talk about the big issues from this month's meeting. More on that in just a moment, but first, here's your 60-second Board Wrap-Up. The board joined neighbors Fairfax County and the city of Alexandria in enacting a 5-cent tax on disposable plastic shopping bags. The county will embark on a fall education campaign to help residents understand the benefits and will develop strategies to help those who may be most burdened by the tax, aligning with the county's equity focus. The plastic bag tax will go into effect in January 2022. The board also unanimously approved the Small Business Grant 2.0 program, which will provide 200 grants of $10,000 each to small businesses impacted by the pandemic. And we have a new logo for Arlington County. The final choice, which represents Arlington's close relationship with D.C. and Alexandria and echoes how Arlington was formed from the original Capitol borders, comes after a months-long community engagement process. More than 29,000 Arlingtonians shared their top choices in the 2 rounds of public engagement. You can find details on these and other actions from this month's board meeting by visiting arlingtonva.us and searching County Board. And that's your 60-second board wrap-up. When we come back, we will be joined by our board chair, Matt DeFerranti, as well as board member Libby Garvey, and special guest, Telly Tucker of Arlington Economic Development, for a look at the big story from the September board meeting, and that's some new support for Arlington small businesses. Stay with us. Welcome back to County Board Wrap-Up, and this month's big story, some much-needed financial assistance for Arlington small businesses. It's all part of a new round of AED's Small Business Grant Program. I'm joined now by Board Chair Matt DeFerranti, as well as special guest Telly Tucker of Arlington Economic Development. Telly, I think this is one of the first times we've had a special guest here on County Board Wrap, so welcome.
Thank you for having me.
But Matt, we'll start with you. For those who may not remember, we did a round of grants for small businesses earlier in the pandemic, a little over a year ago. Take us back a little bit for those who may not remember those, about why those were needed and why the board voted on those.
Sure. I think just over the year or so, we need to remember how hard it was in those initial days economically, in addition to on our health. So we helped over 300 businesses, I think in the 390 range, and with targeted grants that were 10,000 or less. And this, I really think that this was a better set of assistance than we saw at the federal level with the PPP and even the state stuff that we've seen to this point, because it's really focused on small businesses. And we know that if we help a small business, that business will survive, and then it will help other parts of the economy, their employees, et cetera. So I thought it was a great piece. Credit to Telly and his team. There was a whole group of Economic Development Commission leaders and residents who helped score this anonymously, and then we got that money out, and it was a great start and such an important piece of what we did last year.
Great. And Telly, kind of take us forward to today. You know, for a lot of people, while there's still a lot of concern with coronavirus, we are starting to see things like restaurants open up. We're starting to see a larger capacity. So what necessitated this second round of grants for Arlington small businesses?
It's a really good question. And the pandemic has gone on for 18 months now. There's still quite a few small businesses out there that are having a really difficult time. Many of those small businesses are still being impacted by customers' inability to come into their space, or a limited number of customers able to come into their space. They have escalating costs associated with back rent, for example, trying to repay what they were not able to pay last year during this time. And we still have a significant number of businesses that were not able to access federal or state dollars, which is a key difference in this year's grant as opposed to what we did last year. And so this grant really does try to target those businesses.
Tell me a little bit of what kinds of businesses we're talking about when we say, and how the team's plans to specifically target those businesses in this round.
We've been characterizing them as maybe some of Arlington's hardest to reach businesses. We have identified certain sectors like restaurants, retail, some personal service, those who have a physical bricks and mortar location in Arlington. We know that's a fixed cost every month, regardless of whether one customer comes in or not, and those expenses don't go away. So we're really trying to target those businesses that have additional costs associated with a bricks and mortar presence. And we have actually taken a step back to try to reach them in more traditional ways. Where normally we would do something on a website or social media, we've actually been using things like yard signs and mailings. We've had a lot of success reaching businesses that way that don't always appear when we do something online or when we have a webinar, that sort of thing. So those are ways in which we're reaching them, and we hope that it will continue to be successful, like some of the other programs we've had, the relaunch program and some of our technical assistance programs as well.
What did you hear from businesses who received that first round of grant and then who may be interested in applying for this second round? What kind of difference did these grants make?
Overwhelmingly, the feedback that we got from the businesses that received grants was positive. More than 90% of those businesses are still in business today. Many of them describe the grant as a lifeline for them. It helped bridge a gap and get them to a point of sustainability. They were able to pay salaries. They were able to keep certain employees' benefits in place during a really tough time where they otherwise would not have been able to do so. And that's exactly what it was there for. We had other businesses tell us they were able to pay back rent, for example, which is really tough. It's tough on the business. It's tough on the property owner, the landlord as well. And so we were delighted that we were able to provide something to really be a kind of bridge that gap and be a solution in a time of need.
And Matt, turning to you, our business community is one aspect. We've been hearing from various sectors all over Arlington County of those who still need that kind of assistance following the pandemic. Of course, we are still in a pandemic. What made it important for the board to allow this funding to go specifically to another round of grants?
Well, I think that we heard the success of the first round, but many of us had hoped that Labor Day would be the time when we would open back up. And getting the resources as quickly as we can out to small businesses can help bridge that gap over the coming months. We're going to get through the Delta variant part of this, but we really felt like it was important to help with a small amount of funding focused on labor costs that can just bridge that gap of those 2 or 3 months as we get into early next year, when we know we won't have COVID completely gone, but we are confident that we'll make additional progress. And that's why the speed of getting these resources out to small businesses was important. And
speaking of the COVID, there is going to be special consideration for those following COVID protocols. Can you both talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I want to hear Telly's thoughts because we had a conversation with staff and the board on this. But just like Arlington County is requiring our employees to be vaccinated or get tested at the moment, and we're making sure as many people get vaccinated or have been vaccinated and show their proof of that, we wanted to set the tone that our small businesses would receive this grant with two questions. One, have you already vaccinated all employees, or would you commit to planning to do that? And that's part of an effort just to recognize the reality that Arlington is doing relatively well. We have in the low 30s cases of the Delta variant as of this today. But I think we still have to make sure that we stamp it out and get back to that really low level. And so that's what the board's thoughts were, and I know, Telly, you and your team were supportive.
Sure. In addition to consistency with policy across, what the county is requiring of its employees, of its contractors, we'll give funding priority to those businesses that either already do require their employees to be vaccinated or are willing to. And I think when you think strategically about the purpose of the grant, it is COVID relief. And our ultimate goal is that we get this pandemic behind us. So if we can encourage behavior that helps get the pandemic behind us, really think it makes sense. So encouraging these small businesses to help get their employees vaccinated hopefully brings us to the end of the pandemic sooner. Mm-hmm. And that's really the whole strategy behind why we would do that.
Absolutely. Now this is coming from federal ARPA funds, $2 million to help 200 small businesses receive these grants of $10,000 for the program. Telly, tell us, of course, the big question, how can they take advantage of this offer?
Sure. So today they can go on the economic development website if they or they can call our office and get on the list, the mailing list. We're going to be going through a period of about 2 weeks of advertising and marketing, really trying to drum up energy and interest in the program. And then there'll be a period when it goes live, and you'll have to submit an online application. That'll stay open for about 14 days. And then businesses will be able to, you can do it directly from your phone, you can do it from a computer. After that, we'll go through a process of reviewing, making sure everybody meets the minimum eligibility requirements. And then we hope to have disbursements within 30 days after that. So everything will move pretty
I
quickly.
was going to say that moves very quickly. All right. And it's going to be, as you said, Matt, a lifeline for many of our small businesses who really make up kind of the character of Arlington's community. Telly, thank you very much. And of course, always another reason to shop local and support our small businesses. And of course, there is plenty more to discuss from this month's board meeting, and that's where we're now turning to you, our viewers. We will answer your questions on some of the hot issues, ranging from a new plastic bag tax to a new logo for the county, when we come right back. Welcome back to County Board Wrap-Up. I'm Kara O'Donnell, and I'm here with County Board Chair Matt DiFerranti, and we are now joined by Board Member Libby Garvey. Libby, thank you for joining us. For those of you who were not here for our earlier segment, we had special guest Telly Tucker, and because of social distancing, we did not want to have 4 folks. So, Libby, thank you for your flexibility.
Well, I was in the other room, and I enjoyed listening to it very much. Sorry, I couldn't just join you, but that's where we are today, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And speaking of distancing and the fact we are still in a pandemic, Libby, we don't have questions on this one. This is our segment where we take your questions, the viewers, that you've submitted to us via email, but we do have some news regarding a COVID update, and I know this one takes some special meaning for you, Libby.
It certainly does, and we do have news, and if we don't have questions now, I'm sure we will very soon. And that's the FDA just announced and approved, right? The boosters for Pfizer for people 65 and older. If I read this just sort of as we coming in this morning.
As well as occupational risk.
And absolutely, and people with underlying conditions. And there are going to be details that need to be worked out. We always, of course, we go by the state of Virginia, so we have to wait until we kind of get official information from them about what we'll be doing. But I anticipate us starting a program of boosters for those that qualify, and starting pretty soon. And I know I qualify for age, and I will be right there as soon as I'm, qualifying and able to get there. So I think it will help take us the next step. It's been so clear. I think you at one point you almost corrected yourself. So we're, when we were in the pandemic, but we're still in the pandemic. And I say we were in the crisis form. That was 2020 was a crisis, and now it's the chronic time, and we're going to have to figure out how to live with this. And getting those booster shots is going to be an important part.
As our county manager has said, it is a marathon. I think it's actually an ultra marathon at this point, but we're chugging along.
It's going to end up being, I think, like the flu, where you're going to get regular. That's my guess.
You'll get your regular.
I'm not a medical professional, but that's my guess.
Okay, well, thank you for that update. But we are going to get to some questions that it's not unrelated. We had at the board meeting on Tuesday, at our recessed meeting, we had a very sobering report from our county manager, specifically dealing with some of our first responders and some of the concerns facing those first responders. Can you give us a little insight on that?
Yeah, that was actually, I think I said it at the dais, that was the most sobering report I'd gotten. I think I've been doing this about a quarter century, schools and now here. And it's interesting because we just talked about going from crisis to chronic, and this actually was a chronic condition that has become a crisis. And that's what the manager was talking to us about. And the issue kind of that precipitated the crisis, if you will, is the state moving to, they closed a number of the mental health hospitals, and when people are in mental health crisis, they need to be in a hospital, and suddenly there's no hospital for them. And we have been understaffed with our mental health, the folks that work in mental health in crisis care. We've been down a number of staff, and all of a sudden we had the need, went up. And we were still struggling just to meet the need before. And suddenly when somebody's in crisis, they need to be in a hospital. So that Virginia Hospital Center, which is, at least there's a hospital for them, the police have to often stay with that person until they get actually admitted. So we have police for 12 hours staying with a patient at the hospital, and we are down on our police as well. And that gets into a lot of different situations. I'll, Matt, let you see it. The way I see it overall is right now our caring professions have been underpaid. Teachers, nurses, childcare, police, mental health professionals. They've been underpaid for a long time. That's just the way the society has been. And suddenly their real worth is coming to the fore. I mean, I often said we found out that our most vulnerable workers were also our critical, most essential workers, yeah. Mm-hmm. And we're in a real transition time, and this really came to the fore at our meeting. So I don't know about you, but my stomach clutched a little bit listening to that. So
sure, and I know we each felt it personally as a critical moment. And the manager, county manager, came and described the challenge and described that there are retention issues with our police department and our mental health counselors and supports. So what we did is ask him to, over the coming weeks and month, he's going to come back with a proposal that will be some significant resources on retention. So we're thinking this is more than $1 million at least, could be up to $3 million. To really help with retention for our police, our mental health providers. And it was made so clear by our lead staff, Chief Penn, Department of Human Services Director Anita Friedman, and we also heard from others. But this is one where the whole board said we have to move forward, we have to support the manager's effort to develop the right plan to address this retention challenge.
And I think also, which we tried to emphasize, we're still meeting the critical needs, and the police are still stepping up, but there's a lot of nice to-dos that in the long run make a huge difference that we're having to probably cut back on. And we will get through this. I'm assured that we will. But we're going to have to change a little bit how we're funding things and what we're doing. Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of some funding, we are getting quite a few questions actually regarding the new plastic bag tax that was enacted. Now, of course, this was a regional effort. Fairfax County, City of Alexandria, and Arlington all adopted this in the same week. Tell me a little bit about this plastic bag tax and what the catalyst for doing it now was.
Well, part of the catalyst for being able to do it now is that we needed a legislative change, and we needed the law to change in Richmond, and we just were able to get that over the past year and a half, really, with the authorization just starting right now. And so we needed that change, but this is sound policy that helps us protect and steward our environment. I know a lot of friends in D.C. who were wondering about this when it was implemented about a decade ago, and it has really turned out well. It's a 5-cent fee, of which some of that money goes back to the state. That's just the reality of where the legislation is. But some of that money will go to Arlington, 2 cents at the start, eventually 1 cent to help with our education. Really the purpose here is to get people to bring those reusable bags and save the environment. If you've ever done a cleanup on a river, you know that the plastic bags are everywhere. And we do know there's some concerns related to equity, so we're going to have to, still have 3 months before we actually implement that. And those 3 months are meant to make sure that our convenience stores that serve our residents most in need have the supports they need, and that we can sort of work out all of the kinks in the system so that we're ready to go in January. But we're very pleased. We acted with our partners in the region, Fairfax County and the City of Alexandria, and I think this is a real step forward for us.
And we have heard a number of concerns, which I thought I might try to address a little bit here. First, and I think as I said, DC and Maryland both been doing this for a long time. So if anybody in Arlington has ever gone into DC or Maryland and shopped, I don't think they haven't noticed a huge difference, and those have gone fine. So that reassures me that we can work this out. So you got those in the picture here, which is great. Those kind of bags, those are the ones we don't want. If you've got the multiple use ones, those are fine. If you buy trash bags to put your trash in and put your trash out, those are still fine. And the clear plastic bags that you would get your produce or your fish or your chicken or something that you don't want to get, those are still fine. So it's not this blanket change. It's really those ones that you find in the river all the time when you clean it up. And I read, I think it was in DC, that the number of trash bags that they found in the next river cleanup after they went through it, I mean, it got halved. I mean, It really makes a huge difference. And boy, it's pretty clear we need to step up and start doing some things. And this is not going to be bad. I think it's going to be great, and there'll be a little adjustment period, but I think it's going to go real well.
So,
Great.
yeah.
And then finally, we did have gotten a lot of feedback. Arlington has a new logo.
Yeah, we do.
And I feel like we've been talking about this for quite a while now, but we officially have a new logo. Tell us what your thought process was in choosing that final new logo design from the recommendations from our logo review committee.
Well, we wanted to listen to our residents, all of our residents, and also listen to the committee, who put in a lot of time working on this. And what we've reached is a logo that I think is more inclusive of all of our residents. And I think it's a step forward that we've been working on for some time. We had an initial round where we received some suggestions, 5 recommendations. We felt as though it was worth going back out to our community. So we received another 16,000 votes on a couple of additional logos. And the one we reached and concluded with is, I've been hearing both some people really positively inclined right now, and others say, you know, I'm good with it, and it's kind of growing on me. But at the root of this, this is a symbol for Arlington, and our past symbol was reflective of a building in the Robert E. Lee House that Congress designated in 1972 for him and not the Custis family. And you just have to, in my view, you have to conclude that the primary legacy there is not one that we want for the 21st century for Arlington. It's not inclusive. In fact, it was a reflection of a leader who chose inhumanity with respect to slavery, in my view, and I think the views ultimately of many Arlingtonians. So I'm really pleased and really happy that we took that second round of suggestions. We listened to our community and listened to the panel, and I think we've got something that is really going to serve us well. I think you like it too.
I agree. Yeah, no, I do. We went out twice, as you said, because we got some feedback that people really weren't happy. And actually, I think, frankly, none of us were really quite sold. We said, "Can we try again?" And they did. I mean, the panel just did. The review panel did yeoman's work. Oh my heavens! So when it came to us, there really were 2. It was interesting to me that we had a way of sort of, voting is not the right word, but people expressed a preference, and we heard from a number of people, and they liked one, and then the review panel liked another. So there were really kind of 2 for us to choose from in the end, and I think we went on this one in a way. To me, it's really been hard. People want it should symbolize this or symbolize that or whatever. And how do you symbolize Arlington, which is so much? And so, well, to me, that's our location, and it's very simple, which is good, and it's inclusive in a way. This is where we are. We're right by the nation's capital, and we stand out, and we're going to do big things moving forward. And it was time. It was really time to make that change. So. Yeah.
And then, of course, this will be rolled out in the coming months as we need it. There's not going to be one day.
Right, we're not dumping tons of money. We're going to use up things. We're not going to throw things out that have a logo on it. We're going to.
Although I have around the building already seen the new logo in a few places here and there.
Yeah, it's great to see. And we do want to be mindful of costs, and that's why it's going to take some years to finish all pieces of where the logo would go. We're going to make some immediate changes on the website or relatively immediate changes on the website and with respect to flags as well. But what a step forward, and I think about the leader of the logo panel who I met some years ago, Minna Kane. She's just a great leader, and all the members of the logo panel. And really we have to recognize our advocacy and community groups who said this symbol needs to change. And so I do think it is very important, and we've done it in the midst while keeping the focus on very important timely issues like COVID and like the economic impacts of COVID. So I think we were all pretty thrilled that we moved forward and changed this symbol, but also that we can continue to focus on our big challenges in addition.
And in the end, we didn't have any speakers at the meeting, which is to me a sign that I think everybody felt in the beginning, we got a lot of opinions. Yeah, so I think we really worked it through, and people were, I think as you're right, they either like it or maybe they're, it'll grow.
We did have one speaker in support, but no speakers in opposition.
Right. It wasn't like we had a whole ton of speakers.
That was great. So pleased to do this.
Anyway, it's good. Good way to start off in our next next 100 years, right?
There we
There you go.
Yeah,
Sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and with that, that will bring us to the end of this month's County Board Wrap-Up. Remember, if you have questions for us after a board meeting, let us know. Contact us on social media or email us at countyboardwrap@arlingtonva.us about an issue important to you, and we'll try to answer your questions right here. Remember, you can always find out about these topics and more by visiting the County Board website at arlingtonva.us and just search County Board. Libby, Matt, thank you both for being here, and be sure to join us next month for the very latest on important board actions and more. I'm Kara O'Donnell. We'll see you then.